Hey gang, this podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. As you all know, this is a business that I started to give back more to conservation. We roast premium coffee that ships out within just hours of roasting, guaranteeing that you'll get the freshest coffee available. The kicker, we donate 10% of our proceeds back to conservation. You choose where the donation goes when you check out. You can check us out at skullbrewcoffee.com. So let's do something great together and help protect wild places one cup at a time. Visit skullbrewcoffee.com and pledge your support of conservation today. Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 112. Today, John and I are joined by Cody DeQuisto for round number 2 of our roundtable discussion, where we answer your listener questions and talk about mermaids. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope y'all are doing well out there. Hope you're getting a chance to enjoy just a little bit of this good weather. I know turkey season just around the corner here. It won't be too long until we start chasing the Springs of King, or at least I'll make a feeble attempt at chasing a turkey this year. Maybe this will be the year where I get lucky, because as I've mentioned in the past, I'm probably the worst turkey hunter on the planet. So, but we'll give it a try nonetheless. But we got a cool show today. As you probably heard in the intro, we're going to talk a little bit about mermaids, which might not seem like deer hunting, and in all honesty, it's not. But one of us on the panel, well, either John, myself, or Cody, might have a thing for mermaids, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Maybe a little Sasquatch talk. But by and large, we're going to answer the listener questions that you all sent in a few weeks ago. We had a chance to all get together while I was out visiting John in Iowa. It was during the same time as the Iowa Deer Classic, of course, and Cody was there. And so we just kind of grabbed a booth at the Lone Wolf Custom Gear booth, or a couple chairs there, and sat down just as the show was getting ready to open, and had a little session together. I thought it'd be cool to kind of bring him back on to answer some questions. We talked a little bit about deer hunting, of course, and then we talked a lot about just some of the questions you guys had sent in. One thing that we did kind of touch on that was kind of interesting. I'm not sure everyone kind of is aware of Cody's prowess when it comes to killing big deer. But maybe some of you might not be as aware as his dedication of in the fitness realm and lifting, bodybuilding, etc. And so we talked a little bit about that. Actually, he and I started talking about it before we started recording, because we both kind of grew up in extreme sports, and I know John was involved in a lot of that too, as far as like snowboarding and stuff. And we started kind of talking about it a little bit, just as far as those endeavors are really kind of a one-man show, where there's really no one there to help you necessarily. It's you kind of go out on your own, whether it's skateboarding, snowboarding, motocross, whatever the case is. You have people, of course, or your peers that you look to kind of learn from and help push you and stuff. But when it comes to rubber meeting the road, it really comes down to your own personal efforts and your own personal will. And it's the same whenever it comes to for Cody, whenever it's lifting or bodybuilding or whatever, or me as I'm getting older, which is just the will to get up in the morning and work out to try to stay in shape. But we talked a little bit about how those types of sports, kind of play into how we approach hunting, and most specifically, kind of how Cody approaches, hunting whitetail, more as a solo mission, and that kind of extreme aggressive style that he has, and where that drive kind of comes from. So that was a really kind of cool conversation that we had that I'm looking forward for you guys to hear. But before we jump into today's podcast, we do have something really cool to mention. So as you guys know, I've been shooting Obsession bows, and our friends at Obsession Bows have decided to jump into the fray here with us and help us do a giveaway to get an Obsession bow into the hands of one of you folks, one of you fine listeners out there. Thank you. I want to first kind of make mention and say thanks to you guys for following not just the podcast, but also following on Instagram and so forth, that we've actually surpassed the 10,000 follow mark, which kind of prompted me to want to do a giveaway and kind of recognition of that, and thanking you guys for supporting the podcast and the things that I'm into and that John and I are into on this podcast. So with that, I'm going to give some details here. So you're kind of getting the first piece of information here in the podcast. So what we're going to be giving away is an HB33. Now, if you guys haven't checked out Obsession bows, I'd go to obsessionbows.com and check them out. You can check out all their bows, but if you want to get a little bit more information about this one, it is there as well. And this bow is super versatile. It has a rotating mod system or cam system that'll give you a wide range of adjustability. It's super compact. It's lightweight. It really kind of makes this a great whitetail bow, especially for anyone who's going to be in a tree, whether it's a stand or a saddle. And the draw length is able to be adjusted with the mods on the cam, so you don't have to worry about whenever if you win the bow, you don't have to necessarily worry about if it's going to fit your draw length, or making sure that they send the right cams and the right limbs and so forth, because this thing is adjustable across the board. So just a few of the specs for this thing is it's 348 feet per second is the speed in which it shoots. It's a 33 1/4 axle to axle bow. It has a range of draw weight from 40 to 70 pounds, which is adjustable. And then it has a draw length that kind of ranges from 26 to 30 inches based on those rotating cams that I had mentioned. And also, if you win this bow, you can basically build this thing however you want with the different colors, patterns, and so forth that Obsession offers. That's one of the cool things about their bows, is that you can basically pick risers, limbs, string color, cam color, and stuff like that, and kind of build your own bow to your liking as far as like how it's aesthetically pleasing. If you do have a shorter draw length than 26 inches, they do make specific cams that will provide a shorter draw length than that. I believe it's like 24.5 inches to 26, I think is what the range is for that. So after all this, the HB33 is what we're going to give away. You're probably wondering, how do I get involved to have a chance to win this bow? So this is how you're going to do it. If you want to get involved to win the bow, it's really easy. I'm going to do an Instagram post tomorrow. So on March 21st is when I'll be making the post, and it'll have an HB33 Obsession bow in the visual. And you're going to need to do a handful of things to get entered to win. So you're going to need to like that post that I put out on the 21st, and you're going to need to tag 2 friends in the comments. You also need to follow both Truth from the Stand Instagram, if you're not already, and Obsession Bows Instagram pages. So basically 4 things that you need to do. You need to like the post on the 21st. You need to tag 2 friends, and then you need to follow both Truth from the Stand and Obsession Bows Instagram pages. You do those 4 things, and we will put you into the running for a random drawing to pick a winner. And we'll actually announce the winner of the bow on the podcast that I'll release on the 3rd of April. So you'll essentially have a week-ish to get involved in the giveaway, and then we'll do a drawing, and then we'll announce it on the 3rd. So good luck to everyone out there. Thanks to Obsession Bows for getting involved in the giveaway. We'll probably have a handful more giveaways coming from our friends at ARCHERY. So we'll do probably some broadheads and some product from Ramcat broadheads and so forth here in the upcoming future. So good luck to all of you out there. Looking forward to giving away this bow. And then with that, we probably should move just right into the podcast and get right to the meat of this thing. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. We are here at the Iowa Deer Classic, and we're doing round number 2 of Q&A. And today on the panel, I like calling it a panel.
The panel, it sounds professional.
Yeah, or the penal.
I feel like we're on a dating game.
We are on a dating
Speed
game.
dating.
You two are sitting next to each other. You should hold hands. It's cute.
We are holding hands.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Around the back.
Right. Nice. We're here to answer a few listener questions like we did last time. Of course, you recognize the voices. Johnny Utah Mulligan. What's going on, brother?
Yes, sir. What's up?
Good. Crashing at your house, eating your food.
I know.
Put my feet on your couch.
I feel like I need a cool nickname with Johnny Utah sitting right here. Well, you got, what was the last time? You introduced everybody like, oh, this is Johnny Hitman Utah.
Johnny,
and this is
Rodeo.
Chad, Rodeo, Sylvester, like whatever.
And it's Cody.
And Cody's here too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
Cody the Lone Wolf DeQuisto. How's that?
They actually call me the Merman, but I'll stick with.
Dude,
no.
I'll tell you, if I had a name like DeQuisto, I mean, that, like, Conquistador, I mean, that's, you know what I mean? It's got that ring to it.
I like the Merman, actually. That's pretty solid.
Merman?
Dude, that's,
The Merman.
we're getting a lot of heated discussions about the topic, if mermaids exist or not.
Well, what do you think?
Oh, they're out there.
They're out there?
They may not be out there right now. They were definitely out there at one point in time.
It's only because your secret obsession with Aquaman.
No, that's got nothing. That's got nothing to do with it. It's got nothing to do with it, John.
Is there an obsession?
I believe in the aquatic ape theory. So I do think that there was some shit like that going on back then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to disagree.
We
I would
could-
agree.
What? Okay, now what about Sasquatch?
No, I don't think Sasquatch is out there.
Sasquatch ain't real?
It's just like the ocean.
Yeah.
What have we explored? Like,
Well, it's
like 20% of the ocean?
Well, then the
70%
ocean
hasn't been
If
touched.
you think about it, the ocean is
it's
really
true.
kind of like outer space on Earth. If you think about it, because it's
Just-
completely unexplored.
No,
you know
it
what
is.
I mean?
Just a few years ago, they found like this new species of whale that they
Yeah.
never knew was there, and it was like
Uh-huh.
hanging out in 20 foot of water. Like,
Yeah.
there's just so much water.
Yep.
I think there's crazy stuff.
Well,
in there.
and that Jason Statham, he had that documentary. What was it? The Megadons or the big sharks?
The sharks, yeah.
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 I
Well, I
mean-
think those were a fact. They got like fossils, don't
I
they?
mean, it was really a movie, but I'm just going to call it a documentary because I think they're real.
Well, anything Jason Statham says, you have to believe. Just
believe
gonna
it.
put that out there.
At face
Dude.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's aliens in the ocean, man. I mean, considering that we don't know that they're there or what they are or how the hell
Yep.
they got there.
And there is, correct me if I'm wrong, there is places they can go so deep that like the scuba stuff and like they can't even get down there without
Yeah.
crushing the.
Yeah, and I think that's different than like the mermaid topic, but there's definitely stuff down there that's.
Yeah.
that's
Now, what about the lost city of Atlantis? Where you at on that?
Dude, I
I don't know. I'm
well,
a little Disney. on
being
that.
I can't speak to that because I've never really looked into it. I never really thought about
Do
it.
you have a trident though?
I got like 3 of them.
Okay, all right. He might be a merman.
He's got a wall with his booners
Yeah.
and then a wall of tridents.
Just tridents. It's funny because there was a bodybuilding competition that I did a few years back, and they always have like for the overall you get like swords. It's like you win like a sword,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I was at a competition with my buddy Irving up in Minnesota, and they had axes. It's like up north. I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that axe.
I want to win it. Yeah.
Dude, I seen one where they had a trident, and I was like,
That's pretty-
I got to enter it.
That's pretty cool.
But I never did.
Well, speaking of bodybuilding, that's a good segue, actually. Thanks for the setup. Appreciate it. We're gonna move
Not
it-
intentional.
Not intentional.
But yeah.
We're just
As
professionals.
he's flexing.
Right, we're just
over here.
professionals at this. It's how it works out.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a Q&A here. We're going to answer some listener questions. A bunch of you guys sent some stuff in on Instagram, and so we're going to try to do our best to get through as many as we can before we go to release Cody back to the Lone Wolf Custom Gear booth here as the show's starting to pick up. But the first question is something Cody and I were talking about right before, as you were walking over, John, as we started kind of talking about our past of extreme sports and how we were involved in skateboarding, snowboarding, you know, whatever the case was. Cody, of course, is into fitness and working out, bodybuilding. I like to, work out as well, and I love MMA and that kind of stuff. And so we started talking about, like, how much does our past of, like, being involved in extreme sports and the mentality that it takes to have that kind of, like, one-on-one or a single-person kind of approach where you're either going to succeed or fail in your own accord. There's no one that's really going to be able to help you. How much does that play into our approach to how we hunt? I thought that was kind of an interesting topic. And, like, what we started talking about was that, Cody, of course, is known for being super aggressive. We hunt all kind of in varying levels of aggressiveness. And I'm like, I like type 2 fun. So I like things that are hard. I like tough hunts. I like to go places where my chances of success are maybe lower than usual, and that it takes a little bit more to get it done.
But you have a safe word.
But I do have a safe word. Yeah.
Okay.
But I never use it.
Yeah.
So how much do you think that kind of approach plays into the aggressive kind of mentality that we have for hunting? I mean, do you think you take things from that?
Yeah, I think I think people, they toss around like the terminology like alpha male or this guy's, you know what I mean? I think that to do what we do and the level that we do it, I think there is a lot of symbolism with those sports. When I was snowboarding, I didn't have a team. I wasn't competing against anybody but myself. When I was skateboarding, I was competing against myself, sometimes a wood ramp or whatever,
Right.
But also, it doesn't matter, I think, also, if you're on a basketball team or a football team, even though you're in a team setting, every individual has to hold their own and hold their line or make that block or make that pass or the catch. So I think there's a lot of things that you can take away from sports, traditional sports, what is, a bat and a ball. I think there's a lot of things that you can take away from that, and that parlays into what it is we do. And I think the bottom line is if somebody has that inner drive, if they're willing to push past and keep challenging themselves.
Yeah, I get it too. I think I agree and I don't agree to what you're saying, just because I think in a team sport setting you can always be carried, and
You can,
when you're there's always those guys. Now, when you start talking about really upper
Like
level,
professional level where those guys are all in it,
I
right?
mean, yeah, and but even then, even then,
they have varying levels of commitment.
Exactly.
For sure.
There's so much variables there. You can get carried. You could be carrying others. When you look at things like, like the extreme sport aspect of things, or even fitness in general, but like your results, via fitness is you and only you. It's your will. How much can you stick to your diet? How much can you train? How much can you be smart about things? Sometimes you can overdo it, but it's the same thing with hunting, man. I think we were jiving on that a couple minutes ago, and it was just a really cool thing to look at, because I not only correlate a lot of my go get 'em attitude that I attribute to like whitetail hunting comes directly from bodybuilding, and I didn't even realize it came from the extreme
until we started
talking.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, dude, my attitude toward skating and snowboarding is ultimately what put me out, because I was so aggressive at it.
Yep.
And it's but it was, and I can even thinking about more into it now. I'm aggressive, but to a conservative standpoint, just like I am with hunting.
Right.
But I know that it's consistency, and it's being there, and it's getting the shit done. Like,
Yep.
You're not just going to go nail that, like you were talking about, that tray flip down a 5-stair, if you're not fucking hammering it, and you
Right.
don't, you don't put in the work. So,
Yep. No, I 100% think the same, man. Just like the will, like you got to have the willpower, the drive, the willingness to get hurt. You know what I mean? Especially in some of these extreme sports, and know that like you're going to have to bounce back.
Take failure.
And that's the one thing that we were talking about, was like, because in extreme sports, man, there is, when people watch, we'll just use X Games as an example, right? Or like a skateboard competition, or whatever. You watch them land all these amazing tricks and stuff like that, but like you don't see like the 6 months it took them to learn how to land that, where they failed for 6 months straight at that one, backflip move or whatever, and that they were falling into those pits full of all that soft stuff for like 6 months. You know what I mean? It's like that was 6 months of failure to get to that one moment of success.
Yeah, or even street, more so in the street aspect. These guys, and it's not so much of a thing nowadays with social media and content, burying content, but back when like skate videos were a thing, and like video productions, like that was a skater's job, was to year-round land those shots, those 10 to 12 shots to get a part in that video, and that was a yearly like that was their you didn't, like you said, you don't see the busted knees and the just bloody freaking.
How many times you caught a handrail in the nuts?
Trying
to do a dark side grind.
You see that 1 3-second clip, like, and then that's it. It's,
right.
So it's pretty.
Well, I've had the pleasure to meet and become friends with a guy, David Wise, 2-time Olympic gold medalist freestyle skier, and when I met him, I'd seen him on the slopes, and I'd seen his stuff on X Games and ESPN and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, sure, the guy's very talented, right?
Right.
And then we met. And he's an avid hunter as well, and to meet him, he kind of struck me as like an average dude. You know what I mean? Like, then you start thinking, some people just have that God-given ability or the talent that they're just really good at certain things. Once we became good friends, I started following him on Instagram and always watching his stories when he's in training mode. Holy crap, man. I mean, dude's like, we go to the gym and it's like, I'm there for an hour, 2 hours a day. Maybe I'll do 2-a-days. This dude is training like 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
it's not an accident.
No, I'm like, this isn't. So, yeah, he has that mental drive. And, yes, he has some God-given, like, genetic abilities to do what he does.
So let me ask you this.
But he kills it.
Here's the biggest question. Well, you said he's an avid hunter.
Yep. He is an avid hunter.
I just, you think about it in the retrospect of somebody like that. Let's say you take Michael Jordan, right? Mm-hmm. And you gave him the passion for bow hunting he had for basketball.
He'd be one of the best bow hunters out there.
Do you think
100%.
he wouldn't be?
Yeah.
It's about, I think, adopting that mindset and just.
Well, because natural ability is only going to get you so far, right?
Yeah.
It's like how you get to that level of like expert and elite is like the effort you put in. Because there's a lot of guys out there that have whatever you're doing, or guys and girls, whatever sport or whatever thing you're doing.
Yep.
There's a lot of people out there that have the same amount of ability that you have, right? The difference between those who are elite and those who are good is the work that you put in to kind of capitalize on your abilities.
Well, and I think it comes down to three components: ability or talent,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Access, and that you can overcome. If you want to do it bad enough, I moved from Kentucky to Iowa. If you want to do it bad enough, you can go do it. and then inner drive, you know, to keep trying to be better and be better and be better. I mean, like this guy to my left, I don't really like him that much, but I know he's a better deer hunter than me.
Cody
so I
said
hang
to his
out
left.
with him.
I'm on the right.
So he's a better deer hunter than I am. So and you know, that was one of those things where, like, you and I have had conversations. Like, I'm in Iowa, I've had the opportunities, and I've told him straight up, I'm like, hey, this over the course of this next season, like, I want to come up and spend some time with you because you can learn from everybody, you know.
Yeah,
100%.
And
It's something I want to get better at, and I'll never admit that I know everything. I can learn from this guy. I know I can, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I think even when we sit and we talk like this, like, we all pick little things up from each other, like, that are just like small little things, and that's the biggest thing is watching guys who are really excel at something. They're always able to pick something up from the person who's not as good because they're trying something a little bit differently because they maybe don't have as much ability or they don't quite understand something yet. You know,
I'm hoping Cody picks up something from me at some point, but you know, we'll see.
I've already learned so much, John.
Yeah, right now he's going, yeah, me too.
yeah,
So
he's like,
No,
Please say something intelligent.
But that's the thing. Like, I think I keep a pretty open mind about all that stuff. And like you said, if you want to get better, you can't close off. You got to
you got to look for it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're gonna. I mean, it's. And I feel like a broken record, but we talked about it, like with the fitness thing. It's just like, okay, if you're doing a diet that ain't working, well, just change it up.
Yeah.
You know, change up your diet a little bit.
Right.
And try and keep changing it until you find out exactly what works for you.
Yeah.
And then, then just hammer it home.
And then go all in.
But what will also happen, just like whitetail hunting, over the course of time, let's say all of a sudden that diet ain't working and you're not cutting anymore or you're not maintaining anymore, fucking switch it up again.
Yeah, you got to tweak it.
Like, tweak it, just like plateaus in lifting.
Yep.
If your main goal is to bench press 500 pounds, right, you might go on a year routine where you're constantly making advances and, you get stuck in that routine. Well, then all of a sudden you hit the plateau. Well, if you can't adjust for that plateau, you're never going to hit that 500-pound bench.
Yeah.
You're never going to kill that bigger deer if you don't get out, like.
And sometimes you got to go backwards to go forward.
Yeah,
so it's like maybe you have to
sometimes you
change your routine up to where it's like maybe you were benching 450, right?
Yeah.
You have to change your routine because you're not growing anymore, and then maybe you have to scale back to 375 and start at that point to kind of move forward. So it's always a balancing act between like doing something that's familiar and doing stuff that works, right? And I think that's kind of like the important thing whenever it comes to hunting is like that. I know you've been 2 episodes we've done together. It's like that's the thing that I'm taking away more so than anything of implementing more next year is not continue to do the same things that hurt me in the past and try to look at things differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What is it? The definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Keep doing the same thing, expect a different result. Right? Yeah. So
And that's something and also, hey, what about this one? You always miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep.
Correct.
100%.
Boom.
Dude,
Boom. Mic drop. We're done. We're done. Cut the episode.
Yeah, let them fly. Let them fly, boys.
I think that was it's weird, but I think a little things like that. I think I seen that on a back when I was in like high school on like a history teacher's wall or something. It was like a basketball player, and I literally looked at it and I'm like, it's fucking true.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
it's just like a lot of these deer scenarios. Like I get a lot of people that I talk to that are like, oh, well, I'm not gonna do that, or I'm not gonna chance this, or I'm not gonna try this, and I'm like, well, you'll never know.
Yeah.
He could have died, but not that I'm saying go at everything with such a half-cocked approach, but
Yeah, I mean, you have to take some calculated risks sometimes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of the approach.
Yeah.
So the next question here is kind of falls nicely off this first one, which was this person's asking, what do we do to prepare during the off season to maintain success in the field? So Cody, we'll start. So off season, what do you do in the off season that kind of helps set you up for success?
I'm drinking a lot of milk.
Drinking a lot of milk.
Drink your milk, boys and girls.
I had to throw that in there. So it's funny because I was just thinking about this too, and not to get too off topic, but we were talking previously about my visions on. I think of these deer, in a sense of like I think of myself when I'm training, in terms of like, okay, trying to grow muscle, needing rest, versus rat growth and pressure and all that stuff. So, but at the same time, I think out of season, what gives me this so much drive and intensity when I'm hunting, and then I'm able to keep hammering it day in and day out for months, and then, not get any sleep, and not have a problem with it, is that I'm not beating myself up in the off season.
Right.
Like, it's like I look at that as an off season. you'll hear that all the time. There is no off season. Like, okay, well, good luck with no off season. Like,
You're going to
that's
be burned
just,
out by next season.
That's just not the way I look at things.
Yeah.
Just like now, I guess it.
Well, no off season doesn't mean you don't do anything to prepare, right?
Yes.
It's like, and that's the
Yes.
thing that people need to understand. It's like, I think what you're kind of getting at is that there is always things you can be doing, but you have to be mindful of how much you're doing and when you're doing it. That way you're performing at your peak when it's prime time,
Yep.
right? It's like, I'm not going out in the timber and grinding it every day like I do during hunting season, but what I am doing is shooting my bow a couple arrows every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is like not taxing on my body. I get to spend some time at home with the wife and the kid. They feel cool about it whenever I do leave in October because I'm kind of spending time when I have the free time. So it's like off season isn't necessarily about pounding the pavement. And I would say even like off season scouting, sometimes people do too much of it and put too much stock into it. If you're going to scout and you have limited time, like I feel like you should be taking that time like either right before the season or as the season starts, or spend more time during the season scouting as opposed to the off season.
Yeah.
And I do like. I get what you're saying too. I would probably say I definitely like to do scouting around this time of year after the season's done. Who doesn't like to go pick up antlers? Or
Right,
at least
yeah,
look for
yeah,
antlers. But
for sure.
I'm more so. I mean, I'm trying not to burn myself out. Not that I would burn myself out. I think I would just keep driving for it. But more so I'm trying to preserve my property for the year to come. Like that's more of the thought. So the less I'm jagging around in there, I feel the better about how my next season's going to turn out. Kind of like the old proverbial shove before the fight.
Right.
Yep.
I am the last person that's going to sit there and shove with you. Like,
Right.
if it's time, it's time. Like
Right.
it's just one of those things where like I would rather not, kind of.
Right.
Not saying I don't, like you said, not saying I don't do anything. I get out there every once in a while, but I'm not out there with notebooks, walking every day, scouting, like, looking at what they're doing. And I might have a couple cameras up that get thrown up when they start growing in like June. But, I'm an outdoor enthusiast. I got a lot of other hobbies that take up my time. I love to fish, so I'm fishing a lot. I turkey hunt in the spring a little bit. That, I'm still out there, not really focusing like hard on whitetails.
Yep.
I think it would just drive me nuts to focus on whitetails 5 months before I could actually go hunt a whitetail.
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
just it literally drives me crazy.
I do like a little break, man. It's like I'm a
Yeah.
shitty turkey hunter. I'll be the first one to admit it, but I like going to do it. I'm a shitty shed hunter, you know what I mean? But I like going to do it.
Yeah.
I take the approach of I shoot my bow a lot during the off season, and then I tweak my gear during the off season. It's kind of what keeps me connected. I
Yep.
kind of figure out what system's going to work for me the next year of what I want to do. I start making a plan mentally of like how I want to approach the season. Like this year, it's going to be more aggressive. I'm going to probably adopt a little bit more of what you and I have been talking about in this podcast.
Yeah.
For next year. So those are the types of things I'm doing. I'm not pounding the pavement, so to speak. But John, what
Yeah.
about you, man?
So, as much as I hate it, like in the off season, I don't go to the gym as much as I want to, but it's mostly because you're spending so many hours out and you're hunting late, getting up early. I feel like I'm beating my body up. You know
the
what
off
I mean?
season?
No, in season. So in the off season, that's when I go crazy. You know what I mean? I get back into the gym, and it's almost like preparing my body, for the season.
Yep.
In a sense. But I enjoy tweaking on my equipment and making little changes here and there, things that I can make little improvements on here and there. But you're right. I mean, and I've had the same thing happen to me. We make a post and it's like, during the off season, I like to, do this. And some guy's like, what are you talking about? You must not be a real hunter. There is no off season. It's 365 lifestyle. Bub.
The rules.
Yeah. And I'm like, chill, Biff Tannen. You know what I mean? I'm like, look, here's the deal, man. Yeah.
I love Biff.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Like, make like a tree and get out of here.
Get out.
But,
That's a good reference.
Yeah, but so that's my thing. I'm like, no, I get it. Yeah, there is no off season, like, because you're always doing something. You're scouting. You might be doing something, at the house, but it's not going to stop you from thinking about a tree stand.
I was just going to say that, like, one of the things I think people is probably the best thing to do during the off season is kind of analyze your prior season and like where are the mistakes that you made and how do you want to change it going
we
forward.
talked about it
You know what I mean?
in a previous podcast.
Yeah.
I learned way more from my failures. So I look at all of my failures or shortcomings from that last season, and how am I going to correct those into this season?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it's that, you know, in front of the mirror. You're not a loser.
I saw Cody doing that with his phone actually just a little bit before the show
Yeah.
started, standing in front
You
of it.
will do better.
Behind the banner.
Yeah.
He cried a little bit then afterwards.
Smacking myself with a bamboo cane on the wrist.
Yeah, getting his game face on. No, but I mean,
what did you do?
That's my thing. I think a lot of it is assessing your failures, and then physically for me, I guess that'd be my mental side, and then my physical side is I'm, you know, trying to get in better shape, get faster, get stronger, and
Because that does help.
it does. I don't ever
mean,
want to get in a
being in-
situation
yeah.
where I'm
The
like, man,
fitness game-
I would
the people
love
who say that it
to
doesn't
go
make
further,
a difference.
but I'm too tired.
I've went through some seasons in the past, like when I was quote unquote trying to like bulk and really put on weight, like at my heaviest.
Yep.
Like that, you always joke about that one time when you
Yep,
see
yep.
me, and I was like maybe like 230, you know, at 5'8". Like just,
Yep.
I mean, just
That's big.
boy, could I feel it.
Right.
Like hiking through the woods and hunting like I hunt. Like
Yep.
so, being like you said in that, you know, looking at that. And you know, as you said that too, subconsciously, I think I do the same thing. You know, and I think that goes with. I've always been that type of guy that like to move with the seasons a little bit. You know,
Yep.
as it's winter, I might maybe seem a little bit more lethargic, but I start packing some stuff on, and then as I, you know, that
Sure.
summer, spring, all that stuff, you know, you're burning and you're at your peak. You know, almost like when the gunshot, you know, goes off.
You're ready to go.
September 1. Like I used to actually do a lot of competitions that like were in September, and that would be like my off season of bodybuilding, and it
Yep.
would just, you know, hit the hammer of like hunting, you know, and then
Yep,
I just
right.
Yep.
you know go on.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
a
don't make
rocket
any
like
mistakes.
that.
Like, we're not saying everyone needs to be an Olympic athlete necessarily to hunt, but what we're saying is that fitness does play a role in how
Yeah.
you will feel and how much further you can go. And
Wait,
just
we're,
like,
we're not saying that?
no, we're not saying
Keep hammering's not a thing?
keep hammers not a thing. Well, I mean,
Shout
it
out
could
to Cam
be.
Haynes.
Yeah,
That's right.
we like
I
you,
mean,
Cam.
come on.
Yeah.
We're not,
Dude,
we're
that
not
guy's
knocking.
that guy's a freak.
He is.
Yeah,
He's-
it's
I mean,
like, yeah. Let me.
I don't run
let me
60
say,
miles a day.
That guy is a freak.
I'm not knocking it necessarily. You know, definitely going out west, there is a level
Well,
of endurance and shape you need to be in to
little
go
bit
out to do
different
that.
style
Do
of
that
hunting.
hunt. To hunt whitetails, being in shape will help you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, but it will definitely help you.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
For like simple things like this, most back pain is related to a soft core, right?
Yep.
So if you have a better core and you're better in shape, you're going to be able to sit in your tree stand longer, right? It's not going to bother you as much. So it's little things like that. If time on stand is equal to more opportunities, then
Oh, yeah.
if you have a strong core, you will have a strong back, which means now you can sit and stand longer. Those are the kind of things that I think about it when I think about fitness and how
Yeah.
it relates to whitetail hunting. Western hunting, different animal.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm not a Western hunter, but I look at guys like Cam Haynes, and he jacks me up just because I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Because like, I see like the stupid stuff that I push myself to when I get in the grind, and I see that he just keeps upping it and upping it and
Yeah.
upping it, and he's just
Yeah.
whacked out, you know, as far as which I love that. Like
Yeah.
that's awesome, you know. I mean, I heard him say that one time. I heard him talking or something, and I've gotten the same thing. People tell you, oh, well, you work out too much. Well, who the fuck says so?
Yeah,
Like, who
yeah.
says I like?
Right.
How
Yeah.
could you say that to me?
Nobody needs that kind of negativity
Yeah,
in their
yeah,
life, Cody. Eliminate those people from your life.
It's just one of those things where, and I think I heard him say the same thing, and I was like, fucking right on, Cam.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever,
so it's
whatever
kinda
each
cool.
person needs, man. You know what I mean? Everyone has a different level. Like some people don't need to work out every day and feel good and,
But how-
and
yeah.
be cool. You
But
know, some
how-
people need to.
How easy must it be for him to get up those mountains?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Oh my
yeah.
god.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
The recovery time. You know, I mean,
sure.
just
Well,
it's
you know, he
yeah.
does those one deals where it's like a 24-hour run,
yeah.
Yeah.
and didn't he like bang out like 120 miles or something crazy in 24 hours? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling a little bad about myself. Let's-
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go run
You know
tomorrow
what?
or something.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't have
I
had
think we
that
should
deep
wake up-
fried Twinkie.
I think we should wake up early and go do a little Cam Haynes tribute around the city to Des Moines.
Yeah.
Around
That's
the
right.
city of Des Moines.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But-
All right. So this next question, this fella writes in. This is more specifically for Cody. He's shot this in and wanted this question. So I guess John and I can leave.
So I guess John's going to answer this.
Yeah. Great.
He said he
Mitch-
wanted to hear how you like approach your setups, your stand setups. He said like when you find a buck that you want to hunt, you know, what do you do and what do you look for the moment you find and pick a tree, and what do you use to kind of discern where you set up exactly?
Definitely, you know, it's definitely a puzzle. So I'm using all the pieces. So everything that's went into the, you know, the looking for that deer, where I think he might be, you know, like feelings I have. if it's all clear as day there, like I find a spot that I know he's bedding in, well, then I'm just going to try and, pick a tree that's going to be right for that wind for when he comes in, or I'll back off his trail a little bit if I can't get in there. I do like a nice tree. If it comes down to tree versus like spot, I mean, I'd go spot the
All
whole
day.
time,
Yeah.
So if it's a little tree, I'll get in it. If I got that perfect wind, so I think I have a kind of a checklist. I like low sets. I like cover, but if I can't get them, I won't not hunt them just because they're not low and not in cover. But
Right.
more so, I just want a bulletproof spot with that wind to make it happen. I don't know if I talked in a circle there, but.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think it's some of the stuff we talked about another time where, you're kind of your approach, because I know let's talk a little bit about.
I'm an opportunist, man.
Right.
Like, so that's the thing, too. Like, if I see something in that setup that, like, might strive me to, like, not overlook the obvious.
Sure. Right.
If I can do it, I can do it. Even if I find his bedding area and I got a good tree, well, if I know I can just back up and get him on the, where I think he's coming to that bedding area, I might not just go, because it is tough to get out of those areas. If it's an actual like bedding area,
because
you're
they're
gonna have
bedding there for a reason,
and you're gonna have
Yeah.
other deer, in there that you're gonna, mess up when you leave, or if he does. So there's a lot of that stuff. So,
right. And so it's, and I know that you'll set up too for an opportunity for a sitting shot too. So it's like you're also looking for the position.
yeah, and then that's something that that's something I'll make happen then with. Once I've analyzed the wind and then analyzed that spot I want to be in, and I got that, I'll get up there, and then my stand is always the same time, or it's always the same way.
Right.
There's maybe 10% of the time that I'll do the set and not have that seated shot, and that's just because, like, okay, this tree is a hellion, and I have to be standing, or I have to be doing this,
Right.
and I'll kind of roll with the punches like that. But yes, that's definitely weighing into my decision. And it also depends, too, the type of timber. So if you get even deeper into it, well, yeah, I'd like to be seated when he comes in. Am I going to need to, like, am I going to be able to get away with movement? Do I have a big tree? Am I 5 feet off the ground in a little sapling? Or so everything kind of goes hand in hand, whether, what the area is looking like, the type of tree it is.
Right. You're not going to force, if you can back out and get him somewhere else, you're going to take that approach, right? But also, if this is a spot you need to be in, like the way you hunt kind of aggressively is like you're going to figure out a way to make that spot work. Like whatever tree you need to get into to make that shot, get that shot opportunity. If that's the only place it can happen, there's going to be a way to get into it.
And that's like what we talked about before, where like your stand and your saddle and all that stuff comes into play. Is that it's you cannot be carrying around a piece of equipment that will not let you get anywhere you need to get.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And that goes back to like the postseason stuff, right? The off-season stuff. Like, as opposed to beating up a property, be checking your gear and making sure it's going to be able to do the things you need it to do whenever it comes to that time. That you can get into any tree you need to be able to get into, or that you can hike a little further because it's a little lighter, or whatever the case is, right? It's like that's a big part of the off-season. So what about you, John? Like, whenever you find a setup, say you find that double beam buck.
Well, since I have about 7 of them
Double beam bucks?
on my lease right now. Yeah.
Double beams?
No. So whenever I do find that deer, like I said, not to kind of copy the answer, but I mean it's very similar. If I know that there's a ridge, obviously I look for what's going to work. And with the mobile style hunting, I know that I can get in pretty much any tree, with the exception of stupid trees. But I'm also going to try to, I think Cody's a lot more aggressive than I am. Whereas I might spend a little bit more time trying to back up before I make my first play. And there's maybe a direct correlation why he's killed more Boone and Crockett deer.
Right.
But that's something, like when we talk about looking in the mirror, like you're not a loser. It's one of the things I tell myself every year. I'm like, be more aggressive. Be more aggressive. You know what I mean? So I will try to find an ambush spot. I'll identify a wind that's going to work for me, and then I try to set for that, or it may be a pre-hang. I may not even try to kill him right away. But if it's something like hot, what we call like hot intel, where it's like, I got to get on this buck the next few days, especially if he's velvet and he's getting ready to go hard horn.
Right.
I'm like, I can't wait. I got to go. I do try to play wind as much as possible, entry exit as much as possible, and I do love surprise attacks. I love going in saying, you know what, hey babe, I'll tell my wife when I'm leaving the house, I'm like, I'm gonna go kill Squiggles or whatever his name was. I'm gonna go kill him today.
Right.
Squiggles.
Whatever the deer.
Squiggy. It's like Laverne and Shirley over here.
Yeah. But I might try to go in and kill that particular buck. But like I said, typically I'm a little more reserved, and I'll try to back out a little bit. Bedding areas have never played well for me, and bedding areas is one of the things that, like, I know if I got up to your area, I was going to be like, all right, walk me through a bedding area, scenario, because I shy away from them, and it's either a lack of knowledge or a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like I will nip at the edges before I dive in, and that's something I'm going to try to change.
Cody's
this year.
like, boom,
kick the door open.
Cody's in the house.
But part of it's the same. It's the same though. It's like I don't know
Yeah.
that I'm like. There's been a handful of times where I've found like a buck bedding, like a buck bed, or like an area that I knew where a buck was living, and I probably hung back a little bit too much. You know what I mean? And then just to the same thing you said, John. It's like I'm just not 100% confident that like I'm able to kind of pinpoint where those bedding opportunities for a buck are. Either.
Sure.
It's just like I keep thinking back to how we started.
Yep.
Like you're thinking of that trick, right?
Yep.
Like you want to nail that, I don't know, 5-0 down some handrail, right? It's the same shit. Like, well, I might try it a couple times and I always bail early. I never fully commit to it because, well, I don't, either it's a fear of failure, like, oh, maybe I don't really know if I have that move down. Like, well, but to that same point, I've screwed up a lot doing that too. So it's one of those things where it's a trial and error deal too, and you have to be prepared to screw that up.
Right. Well, so off of that, let's build off of that for a second. Like, so whenever you're looking for buck bedding, right? Like, what's your kind of what's your approach? And we can use the Midwest approach. Like, if you're dropping on a new property in Iowa somewhere, like what land features, what habitat features are you kind of like looking at first to say, like, you know what, there's probably a good chance there's bucks bedding in this particular area or this part of the farm, this part of the property?
I think before any of that, I like to look at the aerial. I surmise, maybe thickets or something that I think that they might be held up in. But there's a lot of peculiar, odd bedding areas, or maybe not bedding areas, but big deer bed in some pretty wild places sometimes too, on like little hedgerows or by mailboxes, and so there's a lot of things you can end up finding. But I think majorly. I'm just trying to find where the deer are. So just walking that property without any specific, like, really going to point A, going to point B, like just taking a nice stroll, seeing what's going on, surmising then after that walk of, okay, well, where do I think these, if you're not getting super, like, not trying to pound it, but you're just trying to learn the property.
Yeah.
Like, even learning stuff. Like, there's farms that I've hunted, that, you think like, well, shit, man, you'll learn more and more and more. You'll be hunting that place for 12 years before you really like know it inside and out,
Yeah.
So just walking the place, seeing where deer frequent, seeing, different things that deer are, eating in that area will give you, a big clue as to, well, okay, where do I think they're hanging out? If they're browsing here, they're, their main, water source, and just taking all these little sort of things in account, on a typical stroll of a scout would be probably like the best,
right?
My best tactic or way about it,
right? And then the next step for you that I guess I feel like is, and what might be different than some people who are hunting buck beds, is that you're doing a lot of in-season scouting, looking at like fresh sign and hunting hot sign. So it's like you're letting that kind of dictate then to tell you where the buck is bedding at that moment, right? So that's kind of the
and some of those areas can be the same through a long period of time, and some of them can change. And as soon as the rut starts coming in, you start getting a lot of
squirrely,
and that's the type. So when you look at it, it's really kind of a big change in patterns the whole way, or at least for the meat and potatoes of the season, if you will.
Right.
You got that early and you got that late, that everything will gravitate back, I think. But or even too late. You know, depending on the winter, depending on I know right now, every day we're scared these deer are going to start dying with all the freaking ice and everything. That's they just can't get to anything. I mean, we've been getting socked with snow, then we get a day that's 60 degrees, and then we get, but to that point, you take a walk right now, and if you can't find where those deer are, I mean, it's one of those. It's a lot more of a concentrated route and in pattern, because they can't.
There's limited places.
Yeah,
where
they can't get it anywhere else,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so we'll move on to the next question. I think I already know how Cody's going to answer this one. So this fella writes in. He says, "Do we have any tips for hunting bucks that go nocturnal?" Don't let me down. I know how you're going to answer this. I'm scared I don't know now because I thought it would just fly right out.
I've got two possible answers that he's going to give.
I would like to say I don't think there's such thing as a nocturnal buck, but I've hunted in areas where when the pressure's on, I literally have seen, I know these deer wait till the cover of darkness to get up. With that being said, I think there's always somewhere you can kind of dip around on the other area. But if that buck, what I say to that is if you're so confident that this deer's nocturnal to where you know where he's at and you know he's not moving in daylight, well, then you should go kill him. Because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you have that piece of information, it's like, and this is a deer that I failed on, but I knew this buck wasn't coming out of the swamp and I couldn't access the back of the swamp. Wasn't coming out until dark because he knew I was there because I wasn't doing shit right. This was early in my hunting, and then and the aggressive nature, well, go in there after him. Then if you know where he's bedded, well, go bump him off that fucking bed and start chasing him.
Right.
Get him to move in daylight.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And for those people who think I'm only getting a camera picture at 1:00, he's nocturnal, and that's your only thing you're going off of.
Yeah.
Dude, go back to the drawing board because you're missing out on so much info.
Yeah.
Quit relying on those cameras with just I had a buddy like that who was hunting a buck, claimed he was nocturnal. The only pictures were at night. And I get a lot of people don't have big farms, and that can happen too.
Yep.
But if that's the case, dive into it, find it out. If you can't get to him where he's moving in daylight, then you can't get to him.
Right.
And then
Well, see, that was the answer I thought you were going to go with, which was the classic find another fucking deer. That was I swore that was what you were going to go with.
Well, and that's where I would get to once you've done your diligence and you've backtracked that deer and you're confident, shit, he's betting on the Brady property and he is not crossing this fence.
The Tom Brady property.
The Tom Brady property, because that guy is hunting some primo shit. He is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
those Giselle does.
So why he's even coming over from the Brady property, I don't know. But anyway, but to that point, if you figure that out and you know that, well then give up, man. Now, and if it's a deer that you can't give up on, well then wait for him to slip up.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do. I'm not going to advocate trespassing, So
right, yeah.
Just, get as close to you can where he's moving as close, and then you might have to rely on some of that squirrely nature. Like you might have to rely on him getting a little bit, aroused with the rut coming up or wanting to mark their territory more, and he might start moving, closer to daylight hours. But that's the thing too. Yeah, don't marry him.
Yeah. What about you, John?
I think kind of like what Cody was saying. I think there's a lot of people who conceive the whole nocturnal, deal. So, okay, he's restricting a lot of his movement to the evening hours, whether he feels pressured or that's when he feels safer or whatever. Again, your trail cameras might just be catching him in his evening feeding pattern loop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, I only get pictures of night. Well, probably because your camera's in the wrong spot. You need to backtrack and find out where he's coming from. And it's not like he went into his hole during the day. He just might be laid up someplace, you know what I mean, bobbing for apples, in the timber, with his head on the nod. So I think anytime one of these writers, who often are very gifted writers in these magazines, you know what I mean, but they, how to solve the nocturnal buck dilemma, and then the guy reading it, says, you know what, Cody? That's what happened to me last year. I would have killed that buck if he didn't go nocturnal.
That's selling tickets. That's what that
is.
Right.
Yeah. And so I like the editorials, but it almost gives excuses sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes
see-
a disservice that's done with some of those tips of like, this is how you do this. It's like, to your point, Cody, it's like there's a lot of things that are going into that, right? There's a lot of things about that buck that you might not know. It's like I had one 2 seasons ago on our family farm. I watched him for 2 years, and I only ever got, during the summer, I'd get daylight pictures of him. He would stay around after he would go hardhorn, but by like October, like 10th, he would go completely nocturnal. I'd only ever get him on like a few scrapes, and it was always at night, right? So I kept kind of watching him, and I set up for a late season hunt, and I caught him coming to a food source super late, like just 15 minutes before dark. I got that last puzzle piece, and I finally figured out where he was bedded. He was bedded on the neighbor's property. He was using his pinch point to get from point A to point B. So now all of a sudden, I backed up a little bit, and it was the last hunt of the season. I saw him. I sat for him 4 hunts in a row at the end of that season, and I saw him all 4 hunts. I just couldn't ever get the right tree to get him, right?
Yep.
So then the next season, I was like, I know what he's doing. He's going to keep that early season pattern. Like, so I'm going to move a little further back, closer to his bed. I'm going to kill him on opening day. He showed up within 30 yards with a group of, like a couple, I didn't expect him to bachelor it up still, but he had a couple spikes with him, and one got up underneath my stand, winded me, just walked away, then he turned around and walked away and never got an arrow in him. But it was like I figured out the puzzle, because the last piece I had was like, where is he bedding? Because I got him in these places at night.
He
and I
was
just
changing up some bedding patterns when he went hardcore.
Well, that's the one thing I would
His
ask this
fall
person.
bed was a little different.
I would ask this person, it's like, when is he nocturnal, right? Because this buck was killable early season for me, and he was killable late season. He wasn't killable from mid-October through the rut. Like, forget about it, because he was never coming over early enough onto our property from the neighbor. So it's like I would ask this person, it's like, is this buck just nocturnal always, or does he have periods of being nocturnal? Because if he's nocturnal, or if he's daylight moving early October, kill him early October.
And that's the thing, to really answer a question like with a very good answer, you need a lot of details.
Yeah.
You know, what's making you say he's nocturnal? Let's dive into that first.
How many trail cameras are you running? You know, have you ever moved them?
So
is he the dominant buck on the property, or do you have a more dominant deer? Like, there's a lot of things that you need to kind of figure out. You know,
there's
what type of crops are on the property? Do you have a lot of mass in the timber? You know what I mean? Is there a reason why he's not showing up? You know.
Yeah, there's variables there that really start to play into the nocturnal circumstance, and bucks can do it, but most of the time that I've seen or that I've heard of bucks actually being nocturnal is when they know you're there. Yeah. Like if they've outsmarted you and you're not doing your diligence to hunt right, and they know you're there, well, why would they get up and walk around you?
Yeah,
they're not. You know, it's just
the bump and dump turns you into a chump.
That's a good one.
They have to feed 5 times a day though, so there's no deer that is completely nocturnal, right? He's just nocturnal to you because you're not in the right place, or the cameras aren't in the right
nocturnal
places.
in your area,
right? Because they have to get up 5 times a day to feed.
But I guarantee,
so he's got to get up the move.
Yeah, he is above ground somewhere in daylight hours.
Yeah.
He might be sleeping. You know, he's someplace.
All right. So this next fellow here writes in, can you discuss tactics for locating a mature buck on public land during the summer? How do we approach that?
I don't ever look around in summer, so I'd probably.
I mean, it's one of those deals. I have come across places where I'm like, that'd be a great buck bed, but I don't know if it's a 2-year-old living there. I don't know if it's a 5-year-old, if it's a 6-year-old. I don't know if it's a spike living. You know what I mean? So that becomes visual at some point.
Yeah.
Throw away the theory of big bucks only are gonna, in past lives, rub on big trees and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can go on the hoof tracks. Mm-hmm. Good forefinger, and you're in the money. So that's a mature buck, right? But I think visual is where you got to find it. I can't say definitively that only matured bucks would bed in a thicket like that.
Right.
Cody, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think there is good safe zones, but it could be a good safe zone for a doe.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, and I feel like an idiot when I say it. I'm like, man, now that looks like a big mature buck bed. I'm just being an idiot and just saying that, you know, like,
right.
I don't know that there's any big bucks only sleep in king size beds and not queen size beds, you know?
The only thing that I really do, and this isn't an exact science, is I know you guys do this too. It's like I'll go out and I'll glass properties near public that I might want to hunt and see if there's big deer out in a bean field or something feeding, and say, okay, I know there's a big deer here. If he's living on this public or not, I don't 100% know, but I know he's around. Mm-hmm. And then, when I hunt Ohio, it's like I'll often go out in August and do kind of walk through. It's like I'll literally look for old big buck sign and say, they may not use it that year, but I can at least say at one point in time, this area was good to have a big buck in it, right? So if the sign's maybe 2 years old, it's like the habitat maybe hasn't changed that much. So it's like, okay, I can maybe throw a hunt at this now, throw a camera up in August, and then see and come back in November and see what inventory I have, and then put the pieces together that way. But unless you have public ground in a state that they're doing a lot of like food plotting on and stuff like that, or they're leasing it out to farmers or whatever, where you can get like a bean field that's going to be on the public or whatever, which does happen in Ohio some. That to me is like the only way you can really figure out if there's going to be a big buck there. And even then, the dispersal when they go hardhorn, there's no guarantee he's still going to be there.
You got to have the visual, but I am a firm believer. What is once a buck bed will always be a buck bed. So, like, if let's say there was a 4 or 5 year old buck, whatever, living in this bedding area, and he gets killed, the next buck that comes through the area is going to be like, that's a pretty damn good spot. You know what? I think I might claim this spot. And that's where you hear about those guys that, on the same property and hunting the same bedding area. Every year they kill a big buck, a new big, like a big buck moves into that area,
Have you ever seen that, Cody?
Yeah, but I don't know if I would marry that theory personally, like bed for bed.
Would you date it?
I don't know if I like the way this theory's looking. I don't know if it's up to my standards. I'm going to slum with this theory for a little bit here.
Okay.
There's awesome bedding areas that'll always be awesome bedding areas, I think. I mean, I'm not going to say that, like, okay, if a 200-inch buck beds here, a 200-inch buck will always bed here. Like, it'll always be the mega giant that bed. I don't think so.
No, right, no.
Now, I mean, and even, it comes, I think a lot of that, too, is, like, a deer's experience. And, like, now there's spots that are always going to work out great for deer. Just like there's those magic pinches that are always going to pinch animals down when they want to get from point A to point B.
Right.
Like there's that going on, but a lot of that, and I think what you're talking about is, I mean, if you're killing deer and you're harvesting deer out of an area, you're always going to have another crop coming up.
Right.
Now I have seen areas that I've killed deer in within days, new bucks move in, but I think that's not like a bed scenario. That's more so a territory scenario, and those bucks didn't want that competition of that big boy or that old deer. They didn't want to deal with the hassle, and its temperament. It's just there's a lot of differences,
right?
A lot of things that make that up, and because I've done it early on. I've killed deer off beds and thought for sure, like I know exactly where he was bedded. That is going to be a spot where I got buddies that do that like hunt some of my old spots that were like awesome years ago, and I'm sometimes like, dude, it's just not happening there, man. Like just
give it up.
But it's such a good spot, and I'm just like, well, yeah, and it's been and there's even spots like that like I throw a sit at that I just can't get out of my head. They were that awesome, and I don't know if they'll ever be a good spot again. And there was and that buck had that area fucking tore up. That was his place. It took me weeks to find him. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know where the hell he was. That was like probably the worst. That was probably the buck. And this certain piece of property, I literally have problems finding this spot every time I go looking for it. That's how fucking Narnia this spot was. Like, and then when I found it, I'm like, oh, this is always going to hold a giant. Like I had that in my mind.
Right.
And it's never held a giant. It's been like 6 years now.
Really?
Never. So I'm just like, fuck that spot.
Right.
So it's just kind of...
And that's a lesson in getting married to a spot.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Is.
It's like...
Yes, it is.
Because that's one of the biggest things I think for most deer hunters is they think one spot produced one time, it's always going to produce. Now, there are certain funnels, like you were saying, that are always going to pinch deer down.
Yep.
There's always... So it's like... And I usually just refer to those as rut funnels, right? It's like... Deer are going to cruise between two bedding areas, and there's a pinch there they're going to have to pass through. So it's like you're going to see bucks, but is it going to be the right buck? I don't know.
Yep.
But you'll have a chance to see bucks probably.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Or, a lot of people now are like just really going crazy and doing a lot of timber cutting. Like to force deer in certain directions.
Yeah.
And now, I can't. So that's something like I can't speak on any of that. If you got a whole freaking 10 acres of shit hinge cut with goddamn, pathways in it, well,
Right.
I can't say that that's not always going to produce a giant. It probably will. Like if you're catering your land to that.
Right. If you're doing things specifically to try to grow giant deer and make them move certain ways, because there's plenty of habitat specialists that's what they focus on, is like putting certain types of food in certain areas with certain types of cover in certain areas because they're going to move the deer on this type of route through their property. Like I know, I'm blanking on his name, Jake Elinger from Michigan, big property specialist or whatever. And like that's kind of like how he has his property set up. Like he knows how the deer are going to travel because he's got it set up. They're going to hit this.
Because he made it that way.
Exactly. He spent 20 years putting that property together to do exactly what it does now. But, all right, next question. So this is one about urban hunting. So do we do any urban hunting? And if so, how do our tactics change? So I guess I can take the first stab at this one because I do urban hunting or whatever. So for me, like your tactics don't necessarily change per se. Like you're still kind of reading and looking at all the same things. But what does start to change is that you have a lot more variables that are going to be in play, right? So whenever you're hunting the timber, it's like you might be thinking about, I have this deer on camera, and I know I've seen him bedding here. He's going to use this trail. Now there's simple little things like the kids coming out to jump on their swing set, or the person walking their dog down the street, or the mailman just came by and dropped off the mail that are now going to start to change like how you hunt. You know what I mean? Or have to change or should change how you hunt because all those things or external pressures are going to change what the deer are doing. The biggest thing that I learned this year in hunting this swamp that was in a suburb setting was using the sound of the road as my cover walking in, because there was only one way to get in this swamp, and I knew that deer were bedding at the beginning of the swamp. I couldn't get access on any of the private properties around it to get in, so it was my only way in, and I was bumping deer every time I was walking through. So what I started doing was I stopped going in the morning whenever it was quiet. I waited till traffic was heaviest, like around rush hour, like around 9 o'clock. And I would walk in, and every time cars and big trucks would go by, I would walk. When traffic lightened up, I would stop. As soon as traffic started moving again, I would walk again and use the road sound as my cover sound as I was walking in. And once I started doing that, I stopped bumping deer out, and the hunts got a lot better. Now, the deer ended up disappearing, and I have some stuff to learn on that property yet. But that's kind of how things changed up for me. It was like your environment changes. So start thinking about how that environment has changed and what pieces of that environment can I start to use to my advantage now. So that's kind of my approach.
I don't have a whole lot of experience with very, very urban situations. I had a property in downtown Cincinnati, hunted it 2 days, and killed that second morning. Went in there one evening, no good, left everything in the tree, came right back in the morning, and was able to get one. It was a late October 26th, something like that. But what I thought, and I still believe, in an urban situation, I think you can get away with a little more on your scent. They're used to smelling, humans, especially if the humans are living.
Some spots you'll smell someone's laundry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like legit, depending on how close you're set up to like their yard.
I played on that and was like, well, I can be as aggressive as I want. And it literally, this deer walked down my trail, followed my footprints right in. And me and my hunting buddy, Mike, at the time, he was running a camera for me that day. And there was a place in this field where we stood there, we stopped, and we were like, I think that tree will work. I'm like, you know what? I don't know, maybe that tree there. And we literally kind of did the little dance, on the ground. And when the buck came in, that's what the buck did. The buck was kind of like looking around and, I got an arrow in me. I'm dead. That's my experience with urban hunting. I think you can push the envelope on the scent control.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you there, Cody?
I agree with like the scent control too. I mean, I'm never gonna probably go in a spot where I know my wind is wrong. Just from I can't get my I don't know, I can't get with it. But I definitely get that. It depends. I guess I would ask, or I would go by how urban we're talking. Are we talking in the back, the back of a Kmart and there's 3 acres and there's a slammer, or are we talking like, oh, this is a nice quiet subdivision on the outskirts of the city? Like,
so I just recently, I
that's
scouted.
Two totally different things.
So I hunted one that was like behind like a subdivision that was near like an outdoor gun range, right?
Yeah.
There was a swamp that was in between the gun range and in between a bunch of houses, right? And it was like 25 acres, right? So that one's more a little bit like what John's talking about, right? Where you have people's laundry, their kids are running around the backyard. So they're kind of, there's human scent around them, so they're not as worried.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've walked through a place and scouted recently, one that was behind a shopping plaza that was along a railroad track.
Those
that
are the honey holes right there.
Well, it was tore up with some serious sign. You know what I mean? Like to where
those deer definitely are more used to. I mean, they got people walking. You know, it's like these parks and stuff, and you see people feeding deer, and there's urban areas that are fenced off and people hunting on adjacent properties. But when you got when these deer are going through their entire lives of being fed by humans and not being bothered by humans, and they don't really have much to worry about as far as like predators go, like, dude, it's like I mean, what better scenario could you have to like just go kill something? I think
right.
So that's where but I've hunted some pretty cagey deer that were in like that other setting, like, oh well, here's a subdivision on the end of a farm road where it's like, yeah, you're in city limits, but these deer are still living in swamps, and they're still like, they're still deer. Yeah, they tolerate all the people and the commotion and the scents, but they're not dumb. And not that like, well, those city deer, like the really urban ones, can get pretty laxed.
Right.
And those are. I got a couple of friends that kill some really good urban bucks all the time just because they got that dialed in.
Yeah, there's a couple dudes in Georgia, I think, in Atlanta. They're just killing hammers. Dude.
Yeah.
Like I think he killed I think it was a 200-inch deer that he killed this year. One of them. He was hunting it for like 6 years or something like that. Something crazy. Yeah. All right, next question here is this one's kind of a fun one. So what's the craziest thing we've seen while hunting? Craziest thing you've seen in the timber while you were hunting? Or it might be not in the timber. It might be at your truck. Who knows?
I like this question.
Yeah, could get weird.
This has got me thinking.
I'm trying to think of. For me, the craziest one in the timber was I got way too close to a mama bear and two cubs while I was in Alaska, and I, like an idiot, I was watching the cubs, letting them get super close, and then mama came around the corner and I had to change my shorts pretty much, and then I was hunting with my dad, and like once the bear finally left, and I thought I was gonna have to shoot from the hip in defense, coming right for me, and I just turned around and looked at my dad and said, "Yeah, I'm ready to go now." Like I was like, "That's it, I'm done." So that was kind of probably one of the craziest encounters I've had, or craziest thing I've had happen to me in the timber. Like, is there any
You know what? It might actually be this past year, actually November 8th, this past season. And by crazy, I mean, it wasn't like anything, I saw a zombie or anything like that happen, or a deer.
A mermaid.
You just
saw a merman.
Just hooked me.
Yeah. Cody just sat up straight.
I saw a deer come
walking in.
As soon as you
said zombie, I was like, what'd you say?
What? Zombie? Yeah. Okay. No, this past November 8th, it was the craziest day I've ever had in the woods. We videoed foolproof. There's no like me just exaggerating. We grunted, snort wheezed, or rattled in like 13 different bucks in an hour.
It was bonkers.
Any good ones?
I ended up shooting one of them.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
So, I mean, it was just nuts.
You went pretty basic with this scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a good one brewing.
No,
Cody.
dude, I feel like I don't want to end John's here. What? 13 bucks.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
It was pretty cool, and it was one of those deals where before that I can always say that I'd only rattled in or grunted in maybe $6, 100%. Not like you rattle and then 30 minutes later he came in. To me, if you're rattling one in, he's there in 15 seconds.
Right.
That was pretty friggin' awesome. I've never seen anything like that. And after like the fifth buck, I'm like, oh my God, I've never had a day like that before. And then the next one happened. I was like, I'm the world's best rattler.
Nice. All right, Cody, what do you got? Craziest thing you've seen in the timber?
So
we grunted him.
When you say craziest thing, I immediately started thinking like just bizarre,
like
off
weird
the wall,
stuff.
not even
bizarro.
deer related.
Yeah,
like I was thinking of that, and then I realized how not crazy my hunting scenarios are because I really didn't have anything cool to tell. Like I really wanted to come up with like a ghost story, but Um,
or a zombie story or something.
yeah, or something cool. But man, I can't.
Are you stumped?
I think I might be stumped. I'm like, what is the craziest? This guy's gonna have to tune back in. I'm gonna have to think about this.
We'll do
I'm
it.
gonna
We'll
have to think
do
about
another
this
one
for a while.
We'll come up with a crazy one. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one. So this one is. I'm looking here. Oh, this guy wants to
I
know:
like that question.
Do we
like that question.
do we piss out of the tree stand or don't,
Yes.
or use a bottle?
Yes. I do.
I do too. There was probably like a handful of years I used to carry a piss bottle with me every
Yeah.
time until I accidentally thought it was my Gatorade and I stopped.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
Now, no. I will say the only time I would, and I don't do this during the season a lot. I don't drink a lot of coffee.
don't?
I do drink a lot of coffee, but in the season before I head into the timber, I won't drink coffee for that sole purpose. If I was a big coffee drinker, then I might be more inclined to urinate into a bottle or a bag or something like that. I'm a firm believer that the ammonia smell dissipates. It goes
Yep.
away in like 10, 15 minutes or whatever. I don't know that a deer could come up to fresh urine and say, that's that old jerk John.
that's J-Bone.
Yeah, and it's J-Bone there.
J-Bone's in the woods again.
I was like, oh, let's beat it.
Pissing all over the place.
And the theory behind this is I can't even tell you how many times I've been walking into a set and I know that there's a scrape within 50, 60, 70 yards of my set. And I'm like, pee right in the scrape.
Yep.
And I'll have deer there within 5 minutes covering up my scrape. You know, that big buck, you know. That when I said in the one podcast, buck lure,
Yeah.
they're like, we got old J-Bone mature buck over here.
J-Bone mature
We got to
buck.
cover him up. What about you?
Are you bottling it?
You let
I pee in my pocket.
You pee in your pocket?
No.
You let the bird fly out the tree.
I don't have any. If I got to piss, I piss.
Yeah.
It's a good way to approach it.
Now, a lot of my shots are. I think I'm conscious about like the direction I piss off my tree, maybe. But I've never had any really strong beliefs.
What
on
do you like? Super soaking, trying to go long
Dude,
distance.
it's funny.
You gotta make a game
yeah,
out of it, right?
I
I
totally
mean,
have a game
how do
out
you-
of it.
Cody's like,
I'll pick
while
a-
I'm at it, CODY.
I'm definitely picking a leaf and seeing like how far I can get. You know what I mean? It's like giving yourself a hernia out of the tree.
I've never had like the opinion. I've heard of guys like pissing in scrapes like that and doing the old. I've scouted with people who were really super weird about leaving any sort of scent.
Oh, yeah.
And like to that point, like I'm not gonna go. I wouldn't go like piss all over a bedding area like right as I'm about to come back and hunt it. Like just because I probably wouldn't. But if I was hunting that bedding area and had to piss, then I would piss.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So
The
I don't know if that answers the question.
no,
Yeah.
it does. You pee in your pants. It's okay. All right, next question
Don't-
here.
yeah,
We'll do just
Don't
like
pee in your pants.
we'll do just like two more here. What so this fella here writes in and wants to know what the biggest hunting mistakes are that we make.
Not being aggressive enough.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that
that's
a couple
mine.
different times.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this one's a short one. That's mine too. I've messed up one deer 2 years in a row by laying back and being too patient and not going and get them when I thought I knew where they were at. That's my biggest one.
What's yours?
Being too aggressive.
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
you just screwed up all my plans
what
for
the
next
hell?
year. This podcast is over.
I'm selling my bow. It's too hard.
Biggest mistake. Like, is this like during the season or just in general?
I
Yeah.
think it's just in general.
I think it's just in general, but it's like I thought about. I mean, you could think about it if you wanted to get it into like this past year. If there was anything,
I think I've. This might sound like a broken record, but my biggest mistake is dwelling on past, dwelling on past stuff. I think it's, that, and not getting into archery more as a sport.
yeah,
I'd like to start shooting more and like enjoying to shoot more.
Yeah.
and getting that like more of a routine, part of my.
yeah, man. It's like I'll say 100%, man. Like I love to shoot. Like I shoot probably 4 days a week. I moved to a thumb release this year, so it's like I'm shooting all the time in my basement. Like when it's cold out,
Yeah.
and I just like the act of shooting. I'll get home from work and fire off like 6-7 arrows. You know what I mean, and then feel good. And it's like that way. It's like when I pick it up, it doesn't ever feel foreign. It always just feels natural. Whenever I hit the season, there's no like oh, I got to get in shape for this. It's just like pick it up. It's like it never left, you know?
Yep.
So last question here. So this fella writes in and says, well, first one is we'll do two.
It's two-part.
Well, yeah, there's two.
Two-part question.
So this one, he says, any way I can get first dibs on some of those mini steps?
Yes. There's a
There's
way
a
you can get
website
first dibs.
and an email list.
We didn't open up the pre-ordering yet, but if you email us, which we've had a lot of people do this, so we're definitely getting pretty swamped on this. If you email us inquiring about the sticks, you're automatically put on our contact list in the order we were contacted via email. So,
Right.
like the first run of sticks, stands, all that, they'll be. We're going to do a limited edition run on the stands. Sticks will be standard, but yes, email us and let us know you want them, and then you'll get on the list.
Cool.
There was one that came in through mine.
Hit it.
What optics?
Let's back up a little bit here.
He's still hung up on the dough font.
He's messing up. No.
Yeah. What optics do you run? I'm running Maven optics right now, 10x42s. That's my go-to. I'm running the B1s. I'm sorry, B3s, and I also have the C3s as well. And they've worked really well for me. I'm a big fan of Maven optics.
What's a
about you?
B1? B1.
That's
C1?
just their models.
Oh,
Yep.
more power. Or?
C-Class to AMG, like in the world of Mercedes.
Oh, okay.
XLT truck, Lariat. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
there you go.
Got it.
There you go.
Landed that one.
What about you for optics, Cody?
I use and I feel stupid because I don't think I've ever known how to pronounce this, but Swarovski or
Swarovski.
Yep. That's what I use. There's a me when I was coming up, or when I was super little, Dad had like a retro pair of those things, man, and that was all we ever used, like when we glassed in the truck. And I ended up getting a pair years ago, and they're like a small 10x42, like compact, but that's what I use.
I use Vortex Diamondbacks, 10x52. I think.
I've actually heard good things about the.
Yeah, so funny
the
story is like
Diamondback.
I never used glass to hunt whitetails for years. Never. I would take a small pair of binos. I would break them out once in a great while, right? And then when I went out west for the elk hunt, I picked up a good pair of binos because I knew I was going to need them. And now it's like I don't go on a whitetail hunt without them. You know what I mean? But they're good. They're rugged. They work well for me. I don't need anything more than that. You know, they're a good price point. I want to say they're probably like around $200 or something like that.
Yeah. I've heard good things about those ones.
You know, so they do the trick for me. But so we've been doing this just a little over an hour. The Lone Wolf Custom Gear booth's getting busy here, as well as the XOP booth. So we should probably cut this short so Cody can get back to work.
Yep.
Before Irv runs everything into the ground.
Yeah. I gotta wrangle these guys in.
But before we get going,
Come on, looking sharp, fellas. Get sharp.
Let's, Cody, if you wouldn't mind, tell folks where they can find out more information about you, Lone Wolf Custom Gear, XOP, all that stuff.
Yeah, you can feel free to, check out my Instagram personally at Cody_DeQuisto. Any information about the new Lone Wolf Custom Gear products, the stands, the cameras, the new saddle, LoneWolfCustomGear.com or Lone Wolf Custom Gear on Instagram or Facebook. We're going to be doing a lot of updates. If you want, promotions, kind of get in with things, go sign up for the email list. Anything on XOP end of things, XOP Gear on Instagram and Facebook, or XOPOutdoors.com. As far as that goes.
Cool. Utah, what about you? Let the fine folks out there listening know where they can find out more about Johnny Utah.
Instagram mostly, at johnny.utah.hunt is my Instagram page, and then
Way to make it complicated.
Yeah.
Got a lot of dots in there.
Apparently there's a lot of Johnny Utahs out there, jerks. And then at Arrow Wild TV and Facebook Arrow Wild TV. This year is our first year working with XOP over at Arrow Wild, and myself and all the guys are super pumped up and excited about it. And Cody and I are going to be doing some stuff on the Lone Wolf Custom Gear as well. So I'm personally super excited about that. It's going to be an awesome deal. Good year this year. It's kicking off good and working with some good partners. So it's going to be a good year.
Awesome. You guys out there know where you can find me. Thanks for listening.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank Cody for joining. Be sure to check out Lone Wolf Custom Gear at lonewolfcustomgear.com. They've, of course, got a lot of cool stuff going on as far as new products they're getting ready to put out, so be sure to give them a check on their website and then follow them on their Instagram as well. But, of course, I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the podcast if you could. That'd be super awesome. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Ramcat Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
Makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door. I ain't welcome anymore. Long time coming, if it all. It takes a special knowing to color for. Damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but I